thinking outside of the box to realizing that there is no box and never has, that there is no ceiling to the human potential.
Every decision we make has an impact on your life, and it really builds your character.
A person that cannot control their anger is like a city without a wall. You're defenseless.
I think a lot of people have that feeling of hopelessness. And when you can give somebody hope for the future, there's power in the present.
If my reaction is based upon your action, I'm not in control. So 25 years ago, I found a way never to spend everything you ever needed. You always had it inside. Your story will save someone else.
I am your host, John Haremza, and I am super excited and honored to be with James Dently. I'm super excited. And before we jump into this, right, I want to talk a little bit about what do I mean by personal credit, right? I'm not talking about your financial score. I'm talking about your credibility score, because, you know, it's funny in life. Every decision we make has an impact on your life, and it really builds your character. It builds your reputation. And folks, you do not have the success that James has had without a very high personal credit score. And you know, so much of life and business is about relationships, right? Relationships and, you know, how you treat people, how you make people feel, especially in our business.
Yes.
What's interesting, James and I spawned from the same background as far as what we do, right? In the home-based business, in direct sales business. How many years have you been?
32.
32. I've been 36 years in the home-based business, and it's been an amazing career. And I know, James, we could probably talk for literally hours, right? And share all of the different stories and experiences. But let's go ahead and jump into this. You know, for those people that don't know you, right? Which I know that you're incredibly well known, but give our audience a little bit of history and background on yourself, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, before I do that, I want to say, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Not only by your podcast, because now you're sharing your message, your heart, your body of work, and bringing hope to the world. Because in our industry, you know, we start where we start, and then later we become something. And your reputation is just beyond reproach. And it's no surprise to me why you have a personal credit podcast, because the integrity and how you grow into that, and it's just such a blessing and such a treat and honor to be here. So first of all, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for those kind words.
Yes, sir. Yeah, look, I mean every last syllable of it. Well, you know, I wish I could say this in a short answer, short form, but I'll try to be brief. You know, my mother raised myself and my three sisters as a single parent for the most part. She worked in a grocery store in the daytime, a dentist's office at night. And we didn't have a lot of money, but, you know, in the inner city, you don't even know you're poor. All you know is just life that you know. I always tell people that what you live, you learn, what you learn, you practice, and what you practice, you become. My mother taught us to love one another, to support one another. Our lives were always filled with love. My sisters and I have never argued, never had an argument whatsoever. And I was the person who always wanted to go and support my mother and my sister. So I would find ways to create money when I was like 5 years old. I mean, I'd get a Kool-Aid out the refrigerator and put it in a little Dixie cups and put a medicine cabinet, put it in a freezer and sell it for a nickel or a dime if it was a bigger cup. I learned very early that if you can solve a problem or create value, that you can make money. And I wanted to make money because we couldn't afford the finer things in life. But my mother also, she sacrificed so much, John, because she took us to see her play Peter Pan when I was 5. Took us to the Ice Capades. In the wintertime in Chicago, we walked by all the department stores and see the lights and the magic of the lights. And I was the kid that is one of a wonder and exploration, you know, the imagination. I'm the Willy Wonka kid, so to speak. And I always had this crazy imagination. As a matter of fact, I hated taking out trash. So believe it or not, every night I had to take out the trash, being the only boy, I put my Easter suit on. Because I had to make it interesting, or it wasn't going to really happen. You know, so I kind of grew up with that, but I had an unyielding work ethic. And even though I wasn't that attentive and impatient in school, I was very smart. I memorized when I had my first jobs, every manual they had, every job function they had. I moved into management at 18 years of age and kind of grew from that, and then realized that there had to be more. So I left Chicago, went to Texas, and got with a company called Steak and Ale. steak, lobster, prime rib, 150 employees, Midland, Odessa, Abilene, Texas, Houston, Dallas. I didn't see another African-American person for 6 months. I had the best time of my life. And I realized through those relationships that everybody kind of wanted the same things. We may have come from different places. We were raised a little bit differently, but the foundation was the same for most people. And then I began to realize later, John, that even when things go wrong, you don't have to go wrong with it because you don't really hit rock bottom, you hit rock foundation. But the great thing about foundation, you can build upon it. You know, so I've been very blessed to have tried a lot of different things, become an entrepreneur very early, own businesses that own me. And then somebody tricked me to get in network marketing, as most of us, because that's not what I wanted to do. And I got coerced into doing it. And I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I didn't know a soul there. None of my friends would support me. None family members would not support me. And I built a $5 million business from scratch and spent 4 months living in my car. Because somebody put a vision in me and told me my story. They told me their story. And when I learned their story and taught me to read books like The Think and Grow Rich and all the other books that are filled with the gems and the wealth of a life well lived, you found out that everybody goes through something, but those things can forge you and help you come out the other end. So I'll leave it there, but you know, as a baron of a royal order, as a person who's been speaking over 1 million people, trained speakers for a living, and has events to teach people how to define their light and to realize, first of all, that their life has significance and their life is important and that people need to know your story because you can save a life because people feel like they're alone sometimes, and I've been there. So I know I'm going on and on. It's you know, when you're as old as I am, first of all, it's a treat to be with somebody who may be a little older than me, at least by a year or two, who've been in the industry longer than me. So I'm going to leave it there, but it's so rich with so many other things. I'm just honored and blessed to be able to be in a position right now that I can share. And it's just a joy.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. I mean, you said so many little points. I wish I just had a notebook right now with me, the different things that you had said, right? You had that entrepreneurial spirit as a kid, right? Freezing the little, what was it?
Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And, you know, selling them. I kind of was the same way when I was a kid too. Like you mentioned, imagination. I had that imagination as well. But one of the first things that I sold as a kid was birdhouses.
Oh, nice.
Right? And I put them together with popsicle sticks and glue, selling them to my neighbors. And the first rain, I didn't use waterproof glue. Right? They're all falling apart. Nobody asked for their money back. They were just, you know, thought it was so cute that I did it in the first place. But it just hearing your story, so many things are triggering in my mind, just like the personal development. I mean, you know, it's not, you know, what you earn, right? It's who you become in the process. And that really kind of ties back into our topic, which is that personal character, right? That personal character and the way, you know, is what are people saying about you, right, when you're not around? I mean, that's a real testament to the quality of character and the person. And I can just, you know, imagine, you know, the praise that people speak about you in, you know, when you're not around, because you've got an incredible history and background and the impact that you've had on so many people. So what would be, you know, in those early years, right, you went to work in a restaurant, right? And you were in management, right? And so what would be, you know, the lesson and that you know, took from that helped you throughout your career?
Yeah. That it's a lot of fun when you're good. When you can find something you're good at, you have that sense of pride, and then you can duplicate yourself if it's fun. You know, when I was the youngest general manager at a restaurant, and just to tell you something funny, at 18 years old, I'm a general manager of a restaurant, and I thought I was rich. But it's easy to feel like you're rich when you live with your mama, first of all. And to show you how naive I was, I'm managing Church's Fried Chicken. But I took 14 of my classmates from high school and got them into management. I had the ability to duplicate, and not knowing it was a gift, it just made my job easier, more efficient, because I liked being good. You know, I think significance is one of the most demanded or the most heartfelt human needs, to know that you count, that you find something that you can do that serves others and people and the adoration you get from a job well done. So I think that's really where it begins for me. I memorized the operating procedure manual, operations and procedure, repair and maintenance, and policy and procedure, boring manuals. I memorized them. I got to the point I can count the bricks in the building and tell the regional managers in the corporate how many bricks held that building up and how high you were sitting from the floor. I wanted to know everything. I was a sick puppy, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so you just like threw yourself into it. I mean, if I'm going to be a restaurant manager, I'm going to be the best I can possibly be. And you've carried that, I'm sure, through everything you've done.
Yeah.
If you do something, it's worth doing. If you're going to do it well, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I made a lot of mistakes along the way because when you grow up like that, sometimes you don't know what you're supposed to be. What does this really mean? If people are following me, then who's going to help me? And I imploded. I remember when matter of fact, okay, let's shift the story. I was a really good dancer. Oh man, I was a 3rd-degree black belt in Japanese karate, a 3rd-degree brown belt in judo. 13 years I taught for 3. I was lean body muscle. I could take my leg and put it to the back of my head, but I was a great dancer. If you ever saw Saturday Night Fever, that's me, but I was better. I made a living dancing and being a hairdresser because it kind of went hand in hand, right? It was like Saturday Night Fever, the ethnic version. So we had a great time, but I always had the ability to get along with people. And I got a little bored because it was so easy. And I almost imploded because I knew it had to be more. I knew that life had to be more, but I didn't know what it was. I had no examples, no mentors. So home-based business industry, as I became an entrepreneur and had opened up nightclubs, a restaurant, import-export businesses, beauty salons, all these things, I was so burned out because I wanted to live the American dream, and everything I owned, John, owned me. And I was so unhappy because it had to be more. I didn't want to work and sacrifice my family life, which I did, trying to earn a living. So with that, I imploded, and I've done it several times. And through myself becoming better and finding ways to save my life, I began to teach other people what I learned. And I believe that once taught, twice learned, I can anchor it. But the more people I help, the more I help myself.
Right.
And I found such tremendous joy in watching people fly and helping them succeed and learning how to be happy every single moment.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. You said something in your opening statement about, hope, right? Because, when you can give someone hope, when you see someone like light up inside, because so many people, and even today with what's going on in the world and everything else, I think a lot of people have that feeling of hopelessness. Right. And when you can give somebody hope for the future, there's power in the present. And, I think the home-based business and what we've done as the main part of our career really does that. And for me, anyway, one of the most fulfilling thing is seeing that person just like light up. Because I think back to my, very beginning, everything was a new experience. Right. I mean, I didn't know a world like this existed. And, when I was worked at a factory, I was a maintenance person. And, it's kind of funny because you look at the executives and I couldn't even associate or talk with them. Right. And it's where when I came into the home-based business and networking industry, here's people making, in a month, right, what I make, in a year or 2 years or 3 years, and they're treating me like an equal, and they wrap their arms around you. And I think that's one of the things you find as a characteristic in the success of people in our industry, right? Is the way that we pour ourselves into other people. We were there and we want to, just literally give them everything we have.
That word hope. They did an experiment many years ago, and they put some mice in a big pail, and they filled the pail with water, and they put the lid on the pail, and they kept the mice in complete darkness, and they drowned in 7 minutes. They did it again, and this time they had a porthole in the lid, and they opened it up, and the light shined in. They swam for 7 hours. The one thing we do know, that hope will never disappoint. Hope will pull you through when there's no understanding, because the job of life is to live. Everything in life, positive or negative, it fights to live. That's what it knows, is to live. So when you get that hope, you spark that. That's why the light, even the sunlight, is so important for the human existence. You know, nothing works well without it. You got to have it eventually. It has to shine through. You know, so the hope is extremely, extremely important. But when you can also find it for yourself, and in our industry, be able to impart that to other people, to believe in someone when nobody's giving them a pat on the back. And so many people haven't had a pat on the back since grade school.
Yeah.
And now you come and say, you did great. And people feel good about that because, see, if you look at a child, a little kid, okay? Now, the kid, you ever seen a kid and they're playing a sport, and if they do something, they look back at the parent, and they look for that approval in the parent. You see, it comes outside of you. It doesn't come necessarily from inside. It's inside, but it's driven and it's enhanced from the adoration that comes from the outside of approval, which means we have to do a better job of telling people how good they are.
Absolutely.
And speaking into their promise, not into the perceived problem, because life is going to happen to all of us, man. It just happens. And Jim Rohn said it best: it's never the blowing of the wind, it's the set of the sail, because the wind blows on us all.
Hey guys, before we jump back into the episode, which I hope you're enjoying, this podcast is available literally everywhere. Just click the link down below and don't forget to subscribe. That, you know, Jim Rohn is actually one of my very favorite, right? I mean, I have listened to everything he has done. And I mean, there's so many incredible quotes that he is, you know, it's not what you earn, it's who you become in the process. And, you know, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, right? And so many words of wisdom that can apply in any part of your life. And so, I mean, I think for me anyway, personal development has probably had one of the biggest impacts on my life, right? And just taking that in and the philosophies of it. But the story you tell about the mice with the lid on, you know, I think about an early story I heard about from Zig Ziglar, actually, about people being flea trained. You remember that story? You know, you take a fruit jar and you fill it full of fleas, and you put the lid on the jar, and these fleas like to jump, and they go crazy in there, jumping and jumping and jumping, hitting their head on the lid, right? Wanting to get out of the jar. Well, what happens, their head gets sore. And so because they like to jump, they continue to jump, but just high enough so they don't hit their head anymore. And you can take the lid off the jar, and they'll never jump out of that jar. They'll die in there, because they've been conditioned, right, that this is what you should do. And I almost think sometimes society does that, because you think about, you know, a baby has, you know, has no boundaries, but we begin to condition immediately by saying no, right? And it just continues to carry on. Sometimes I think almost the more educated you know, in society you become, the more conditioned you become. Where, you know, blue collar worker, high school education, I have a learning disability, and I was conditioned, right, that this is where I'm going to be. And this whole industry took me out of the jar. And there's no limits. Every single person out there, if they only could realize the music, the magic, the power everybody has within them. But like you said, they need one person to believe in them, one person to give them that opportunity, to give them that glimmer of hope, and all of a sudden they can conquer the world.
John, this show that you're doing right now, what the work you're doing is going to be so transformative. You're going to impact so many people. I want everybody to watch this. Everybody I know, I want them to watch the work that you're doing, because you hit the nail on the head. Because it's not low aim, it's conformity. Even from the time we go to grade school, if any of those parents out there, have you ever taken your kid to school and you're in the car and the bell goes off, instantly there is some anxiety that goes through your body, because now you have to respond, and that's transferred onto the child. So then you go into school, and then another bell goes off, and the bell says, okay, time to go to work. Then another bell goes off. When we were kids, we had recess twice. Now go play at 10 o'clock. Another bell goes off, stop playing. Another bell goes off, eat. Stop eating. Go play. Stop playing. Go home. And we're trained into a system, because you have to have order. Because without order, it would be like if we didn't have any order, it'd be like going through life and all of us running around through all the streets without a stop sign. It'd be a disaster. But at the same token, now we conform and become very tribal. And I think that when we open it up and move from the expression thinking outside of the box to realizing that there is no box and never has, that there is no ceiling to the human potential, only trajectory. And it doesn't matter where you are, where you come from. We go through things in life, but there is always more. And, you know, I can tell you story after story of people who I was in Lexington, Kentucky, Transylvania University, there for another restaurant, training 2 weeks. I'm always the only black guy there, right? But I had the most incredible time. And I also was the only person that was not college educated. And we had a great time. I came out number 2 in the class. We were great friends with everybody. And there was one kid, a young kid, he came to me the day before we were going to end. He said, may I have breakfast with you in the morning? And he had never spoken to me but I didn't really notice. And said, sure. We sat down, and hopefully people can learn from this no matter where they are. He sat down, he said, I want to apologize to you. And I said, why? He said, because I've been a racist all of my life. I said, okay. He said, my father's a racist, my grandfather's a racist. But the fact of the matter is, I've never met a black man before. And you're nothing like he told me I would be. I don't fault anything, man, because all you can go off of it, what you have in front of you. And that's part of the beauties of life, and that's just the realities of life, you know, because we're very tribal and that's inbred. And these things operate on a cellular level. It's not even conscious. We don't even know why we do half the things we do. We don't make our own heartbeat or our lungs operate. There's cells in here that operate based upon what it knows and responds to how it has to survive to make meaning of whatever's coming this way. And if you think about just the beauty of life, that all of us are just trying to figure this thing out to make a stark difference. And there are good people everywhere. And if we would listen to each other and don't worry about things you can't control, to learn to be inner-directed, where we can learn to calm down and then keep that clarity. A pastor once told me a person that cannot control their anger is like a city without a wall. You're defenseless. So you have to calm down, because you and every person else I know gets to be whoever they think they need to be at that moment, because I can love you across the street. I don't have to agree with it, but you can't make me not care about you. Now, I may not interact with you, but you can't make me not, and I can control that, because if my reaction is based upon your action, I'm not in control. And when I'm not in control, I spin, and I don't like spinning. So 25 years ago, I found a way never to spin, to be happy and be joyous every day, to learn how to operate in the image and likeness of your creator, and that means to create what? A better life, happiness, joy. Choose it. Nothing can take that away from you. Nelson Mandela, 27 years, positive attitude. Viktor Frankl, you know, he wrote in his book, 2 men trapped behind prison bars. One man saw the mud, the other man saw the stars. No matter where you are in the situation, you can choose. And in the moments we have, like I've told people today, if you're, okay, I'm 67 in February. The average lifespan for males in the United States is 74, 77. Let's say it's 77. That means if that's the case, so let's say I pass it up and I get to be 90, okay? That means I've got how many more summers left? I mean, think about that. We don't have time for nonsense, man. Be happy, choose it, because nobody can take that away from you. It is yours.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's some powerful words there, some powerful wisdom. Thank you for that. You know, I mean, so many things that you're saying, people, if you're listening to some of these words, I mean, the choices you make in life, right? Because people react not according necessarily to the truth, right? But according to the truth as they believe it or perceive it to be. And a lot of times those perceptions, those beliefs are formed in our upbringing, right? The people that we're around, you know, it's just like, you know, again, like if you even the negative comments that somebody might receive from a teacher, and the impact that that may have on them in their whole life, or a parent or a boss. And, you know, just kind of, you know, pins them down, screws that lid right on that jar really hard. And, you know, it's like they have no way to get out. Right. And so another thing is, you know, we both, you know, Jim Rohn, there's so many incredible personal development philosophy out there, and it will absolutely change your life.
Oh,
No
yes.
matter where you are in your life, if you start listening to that information, right, digesting that information, it will completely change the way you see the world and see your future.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's all a story. And if you're the main character in the story and the author of the story, then you can always shift the story. You know, one thing about our industry is that you cannot sustain in an industry without loving people. You cannot do it. It doesn't matter about where you come from. It doesn't matter about the color of your skin. It matters about how you show up. And all the other stuff that we walk in the door with, it will shift because proximity in the environment will cause it to. Because nature takes care of its own. And if you're planted in the right environment, you're that seed that's in that dark earth. And sometimes we don't really like being in that space where we're all by ourselves. We want the chaos because we don't know what the quietness means. But that's when you, like in the Bible, it says a man came to himself, a woman comes to herself in those moments. And understanding that a seed planted must grow down before it grows up. Everybody wants to get to the sunshine, but you got to build your roots. Have you ever looked at a root versus the stem? They're strong with muscles and bulging and knuckly and they stretch everywhere. But without that foundation, you don't stand very well. So it's just an understanding. That's why I always tell people the laws of attraction are true, but I believe in the law of awareness first, because everything you ever needed, as they said in The Wizard of Oz, you always had it inside. It's already in front of you. And whatever you're going through, your story will save someone else. And your story will be the litmus test and the thing you can measure where you come from, that you will be able to share and pass on to generations to come, whether they're your blood relatives or the people you speak life into. Because when you're speaking life into on a cellular level, we're all connected. And none of us are meant to be on this earth and not to replenish and to give some type of gift back to it. Because it's all about serving itself. And that's the way life works. So I would say this, it's never how did one die, but how did one live? Never what did one gain, but what did one give? You see, these are the merits that will measure the worth of every man and every woman from the time of their birth. Never what was your station, but had you a heart, and how did you choose to play your God-given part? If your heart is broke, if it was broke for real, you'd be dead. It's a story. Reframe it. Tell yourself another story. Even when I was diagnosed with cancer, John, it was such a blessing for me because it allowed me to take that gift and be able to talk to people. In the past, I would say, I'll pray for you. Now I can say, I understand, let's have a conversation. So what would I be without the struggles, without the pain, without the challenges? How could I relate to you if I'm walking around life perfect? I don't get that. But I can give more back through the power of that pain because it meant to serve something different. Because you want to build a muscle, it's going to hurt. You want to make money, you got to push it in. You want to have a great relationship, you got to learn how to bend and how to love, how to adapt, and how to communicate. You have to get outside of your comfort zone, learn to be free and be fully self-expressed in this life that you get. And calm down, because none of us getting out alive anyway. So let's have a great time. And don't ever fret about things that are natural. People asked me once, what do you fear? I said, well, really, it doesn't exist. It depends on how you frame it. It's a reaction in your body, but it doesn't, to me, exist because what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen, it's going to happen anyway. So can we choose to live right here, right now, and choose to love, choose to share, and just work on getting better and listening to the podcast that you're doing with all the incredible guests you're going to have, because those stories and people sharing their story will change the world. And every person watching, you have an opportunity at the right point in your life, especially now, to be able to share your story and understand that your short story has power because someone feels like they're all alone and they don't know that you understand because you're there too. And there's another day. Let's live it well.
Yeah, wow, powerful stuff. You know, a lyrics from a song popped into my head when you were talking about that. And it's something like, you know, thank you, God, for the setbacks on the way up, for the stories that they made up, right? Yeah. Because all of the experiences that we have, you know, we can share those experiences with other people and help them through, you know, whatever the challenging time. Because anything that's going wrong in your life, you're in a dark spot, whatever it is, just always remember it's temporary, right? It's a moment in time. Right. And just stay focused and stay with it, and you'll get through it, and the sun will shine again, right?
And it's not an identity. It's just something that happened. And when things go wrong, just don't go wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we'll make it worse.
Yeah. It's great. I'm super excited. I know you said so many things. I could just go on and on and on. We could talk.
Well, let me come back. I like this.
Absolutely.
This is cool.
We'll come back. Well, folks, listen, we're out of time here, and I just want to thank James for coming here, sharing your wisdom with us, sharing your stories with us, sharing your knowledge with us, and folks, I hope you got as much out of this podcast as I did, because I got a lot out of it. So, James, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes.
All right. Got it.
Hey guys, if you really like this episode and you want to see similar, you're going to love this one right here. Just click the link.